We're now talking extensively about the visa backlog in SA and the impact it's having on bringing in skilled employees into the country with Marisa Jacobs, the MD of Xpatweb. How are local businesses impacted? What is it all costing the local economy? Here is my chat with Marisa. How would you say the visa process is like at the moment with respect to what's happening at the Department of Home Affairs? Where does it stand? Is it seamless when you're organizing stuff for your clients or not?
It is definitely described at the moment as quite a cumbersome process, and even by admission from the Department of Home Affairs, they realize that it's quite a difficult process. The requirements are strenuous for applicants to obtain, and in some cases take very long, so they're very well aware of it. We've seen some improvements. Announcements were made by the President earlier this year where he has specifically taken an interest to say we need to make visas easier so that we can attract talent and we can attract investors. So we've seen some of those changes already this year, which has definitely eased it, and we're very pleased about that. And there is some more proposals on easing it even further going forward. But as we know, government is a slow-moving machine, so we haven't seen all of those changes coming to effect. So at the moment, it definitely, I think the market will agree with me when I say it's quite a cumbersome process to gather all the requirements and documentation in terms of applying for a visa, and then, of course, waiting for the department to process the application and actually issue the visa.
Has there been any indication as to why there is a backlog? So we've already ascertained why it's cumbersome, lots of requirements, but why is then there a backlog once it gets to the department?
So the backlog stems from last year where there was a decision made by the department to centralize adjudication. So where in the past and currently you would submit your application at the embassy abroad if you're a first-time applicant, and the embassy would adjudicate the application and then issue the outcome. The officials were given the authority to do so. Then last year the minister made a decision to say no, he wants to centralize adjudication so that there's more consistency across the different countries in terms of how visas get adjudicated. And so what it meant is all the applications submitted at the embassy got rerouted to head office in South Africa to adjudicate. And over several months, this resulted in a massive backlog, because you can imagine from hundreds of countries around the world, it's all now coming to a central place. So it started in January last year, and by September, the minister said, okay, this is not working, and he reversed the decision. So now embassies are back to adjudicating applications, but the backlog has obviously, there's now still this massive amount of visas that are still sitting in the system that haven't been processed yet, and every day more and more applications get in, and the capacity of the department is restrained in terms of getting through not even all the applications submitted on a daily basis, never mind going back to the backlog to clear that out. So it really is a 2022 problem that has just snowballed, and is part of the update that we got at the breakfast where the Department of Home Affairs presented, was that the backlog is in fact getting worse and not getting better.
Did they give any indication at the breakfast as to how many permits are now in the backlog?
The number that was shared is 74,000 permits that are on backlog.
My goodness. And I mean, one can imagine how these delays in these visas, or the issuings of these visas or work permits, are impacting the businesses that you are probably dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. So that is the outcry from business, is just the massive impact that it has on businesses not being able to bring in skilled talent, or where they are perhaps doing a renewal of an application, that renewal not being issued, which then obviously inhibit the worker from traveling freely and just having some certainty in terms of planning for the way forward.
I understand that you in particular as Xpatweb have seen a marked improvement on visas being issued faster. Any particular reason why you're seeing that, and does that correlate with your counterparts in the sector?
So I'm sure there's other providers in the market as well, but we've taken a very legal approach in terms of how we take our visas forward. So we see it as a legal process right from day one. So what we call a litigation-ready application. So we prepare our clients from day one to say, if you want your application within a predictable time frame, we have to do it from a legal framework framework right from day one, and if it goes over the estimated time frame, that we then escalate it through legal measures, which sometimes then includes getting a court order to force the department to finalize it. And then from a more general sense, the embassies have now, since September up to now, it's been several months now, so the individual embassies seem to have been able to catch up with their own backlogs, which are obviously more defined, and they don't have as many applications. So we're seeing many embassies going back to their normal sort of 4 to 8 week time frames, which is really encouraging. And that's usually for first time guys coming in. And I think that would be something that you will hear across the market that guys are very pleased about.
A random question. So I have a friend who's not necessarily going to work abroad, but she's going to study abroad. And it was really cutting it close in terms of the issuing of her visa for her to go to do her master's, and she's doing it in the UK. So my question is, are we seeing some of these delays as well coming from other governments abroad, or is it just us?
Absolutely. No, it is not. It's not just South Africa. The UK is definitely on the list of guys that are struggling with backlogs as well. I think a lot of countries are struggling with backlogs since COVID, where there was severe constraints on staff. The US is struggling with a big backlog. But there's several countries. South Africa is not alone.
Well, back to SA, your thoughts on the way forward in terms of how the Department of Home Affairs can try to deal with these backlogs. 74,000 is just insane to me. What's the best way in which this process can run a bit faster?
I mean, it remains to be a resourcing problem. The amount of applications coming in versus the capacity of the department to be able to process those applications is where the problem sits. So until there is a point at which they can increase their capacity to work through the applications quicker, as well as the quality of the issuance of the outcomes. So what we are seeing is a lot of rejections on visas being processed, and not valid rejections, rejections for frivolous, unlawful reasons, which means that the applicant has to circle back to Home Affairs to file an appeal, and then the application just sits on a different desk of a different person within the department. So that exasperates the problem even further. So what the department really needs is their capacity to increase, as well as the quality of the application review to increase. And I think that will solve the backlog problem, but how practical that is, and if there's budget to do that remains to be seen.
Marisa, we understand that you're on the cusp of releasing the outcomes of the Expat Critical Skills Survey. You mind telling us a little bit about it and when you're set to release it exactly in closing?
Yes, so Xpatweb runs the annual Critical Skills Survey. We've done so for the last 5 years. This is the 6th year of it running. And what we do is we reach out to business to ask them what are the skills that they most struggle to recruit in South Africa. And we then give the results of the survey through to the Department of Home Affairs and other departments in government annually to allow them to update their databases, etc. The survey results were quite instrumental in the updating of the latest critical skills list, which was released last year. So it really is an opportunity for business to participate and give feedback to allow the government to make informed decisions. Now, the survey is still running currently, and we are planning to close it at the end of September, and then we'll release the results in October. But at the breakfast, we already released some preliminary results to give an indication to business on which way it's heading. And not surprisingly, engineers remain at the top of the list. Home Affairs corroborated this to say that they also see high volumes of critical skills visa applications in the engineering field. So yes, engineering C-suite executives, teachers are on the list, scientists. It's sort of the usual suspects that you would think.
So as the end of August, the visa backlog for folks coming into South Africa, even those with critical skills, is sitting at a whopping 74,000. This is confirmed by Xpatweb after they engaged with Home Affairs on the matter at the end of August. I was speaking to the MD of Xpatweb, Marisa Jacobs, about this issue. Make sure you keep a lookout for Xpatweb's Critical Skills Survey, which is expected to be coming out in October.